Hello, my lovelies. I am back again for another VHS horror list. Today's going to be a little bit shorter, but I just wanted to get these out there. So I'm going to be talking about movies that I love from the 2000s that don't get enough love. I am a 90s baby and I love the 90s. I love everything about the 90s, the music, the style, just the overall feeling before cell phones and all that stuff. The good old days, as I sit here on YouTube. But there were some lovely hidden gems. I know we all like to poo-poo on newer horror movies, because it doesn't have the nostalgia factor, but there are amazing horror movies that came out in the 2000s and even in 2023. So I'm just gonna give you technically four movies that I love that I own on VHS from the 2000s. So let's get into it. Number one that I wanna get into right now is from 2014 and 2017. Yes, this is a double hitter. This is part one and part two of a movie called Creep. This is my double feature on VHS. Now, like I stated in my last video, there are a lot of subgenres of horror movies. Two of my least favorite is body horror. So if you think of The Fly or Tusk, the reason I don't like that, being trapped in someone else's body or in another form, it just scares the bejesus out of me. Now, Tusk is a movie that I actually refuse to watch. There's something about that movie that I don't even have to see it to know that I will never be the same again. Second subgenre of horror movie doesn't speak to me, and I get really car sick. I get motion sickness. These found footage type style movies, VHS movies, if you've seen those. I do love Blair Witch. There's a few in there. If there's any found footage movies that you enjoy, let me know below. Creep 1, Creep 2, found footage. Absolutely, I don't want to say these are my favorite because I've been throwing my favorite around a lot lately, but man, I stayed up really late to watch Creep 1. I'm not somebody that stays up till 1, 2, 3 in the morning. I like to get my sleep, but I stayed up. I could not go to sleep until I watched Creep 2 after I watched Creep 1. So there are two movies, and these movies are based around the main character. His name is Joseph. So the first movie I'll kind of get into a little bit, and I urge you to watch both of these movies. So part one of Creep starts off with a videographer named Aaron, and he's assigned to travel to this kind of remote cabin. At this cabin, there is Joseph, the main character being played by Mark Duplass. So Aaron is traveling to this cabin because Joseph tells him that he is suffering from a terminal brain tumor, and he wants to get some video before his wife gives birth. So right out of the gate, Aaron kind of notices that Joseph is a little, different, a little eccentric, which, is fine. But later through their meeting, he just starts to get this really uneasy feeling. And Joseph tells Aaron that yes, his wife, Angela, is pregnant, but Joseph actually R-worded her. So, of course, at this point, Aaron is very uncomfortable and wants to leave, but Joseph obviously will not let him. Aaron, the videographer, gets a call from Angela, and Angela is not Joseph's wife. That is his sister, and Angela tells Aaron to get the on out of there. It is one of the most bizarre movies I've ever come across in my entire life. So many layers to this character, Joseph, just living out in the cabin by himself. Said there is a part two, and it does not slow down, and it just gets more bizarre. And may I just add that Joseph does have a little friend in the cabin, if you want to call him that, named Peach Fuzz. This next movie, it is from 2007, an American horror movie. If you don't like gore, you're not gonna like this one. The reason I ended up watching this movie, and I believe it was on Netflix, and then I just had to have it because it was way better than I expected. The reason I actually clicked on this movie is because it was starring a nostalgia actor for me, and that is an actor by the name of Ethan Embry. Ethan Embry is from movies like Empire Records and one of my personal coming-to-age movies called Can't Hardly Wait. Now on this case right here, it says heavy metal horror. This movie is based around a house, kind of like Amityville horror movies, haunted, possession, but this house was owned by a man's mother. His name is Raymond. In this house, he ends up murdering his mother because he is playing his electric guitar and she wants him to turn it down. That he plays the guitar because he's hearing voices and it drowns these voices out, and she just tells him to go back to pretty much the insane asylum, and he ends up murdering her. Years later, somebody named Jesse, he ends up buying the house. This is the character played by Ethan Embry. His wife and his daughter move into this house. Jesse is a painter. His paintings become a little more morbid over time. And this man, Raymond, that lived in this home that murdered his mother, he is still alive and he is still running loose on the streets. First of all, it has electric guitars in it. It's called heavy metal horror for a reason. It's got great music. The soundtrack to this movie is magnificent. If you've seen Ethan Embry kind of playing an awkward kid in Empire Records or Can't Hardly Wait, this character is completely different from those characters. This movie is just visually stunning. The guitar, the music, the paintings, so well executed. You also find out in this movie what exactly the devil's candy is, and it is just, it's sickening. Like, if you like metal, if you like horror movies, if you like a lot of gore, this movie may just be for you. If you like art, pretty artistic movie. Now we're gonna move on to one of my favorite kind of movies, and maybe it's because I watched Goosebumps as a kid. And I really like those kind of silly horror movies that have dolls in them. Remember that dummy from Goosebumps? Or was it Are You Afraid of the Dark? It was Goosebumps. So this is from a little bit earlier in the 2000s, 2007. This is a supernatural horror movie. So we're talking ghosts.
Then paralegal activity, aka ghosts.
This movie starts off with a man named Jamie, and he is given a gift. It's dropped off at his doorstep. In lies this doll. His name is Billy. Like, wasn't that the one in Goosebumps? Anyways.
Slappy here is an antique.
Jamie, his wife, they receive this doll. They open it up. They're like, what the hell is this? Know who they got it from. Out to pick up dinner. And when he comes back, his lovely wife, Lisa, is deceased. So obviously when he comes home and finds his wife dead, he does call the police, and they're kind of looking for evidence with nothing. The police do go on to kind of think Jamie did it. I mean, you always suspect the spouse. But Jamie goes looking around this doll, and in the box, there is a message about a lady named Mary Shaw. She's a ventriloquist from his old town named Raven's Fair. Kind of figure out where this doll came from and why. Jamie goes back to his old town to visit his estranged father that's now in a wheelchair named Edward. Jamie is in this town. He's talking to people about Mary Shaw, and people are very scared of her and like how she treated them when they were kids. And she was just kind of a woman from this town that nobody really liked to talk about. So this is kind of where the story starts. Jamie is just trying to figure out why he was sent this doll, what happened to his wife. And I mean, I don't know about you guys, but there is something super, super creepy about doll horror movies. Actually, ventriloquist, people that throw their voice or know how to do that. I wouldn't say it's the most brilliant movie I've ever seen in my entire life. There isn't a lot of thinking for this one. It's just a fun movie about a doll and this guy going back to his town that he grew up in and never went back to again, and a father that he never spoke to. The twist ending of this movie, I mean, I did not see that coming. This, again, it's not like those psychological horror movies that I talked about in my last video. This isn't a very deep movie. It's just a fun watch with a lot of spooky on the side. And if you liked Goosebumps, if you loved that show Goosebumps, you will like this movie because it's just silly. And also the lead detective in this movie that is pointing his finger at Jamie is the one that unalived his wife. He's played by Donnie Wahlberg, which is one of the founding members and members of New Kids on the Blocks. Go in it, not expecting much, but a good time. So that is my quick movies that you should watch that maybe you haven't heard of from the 2000s. It is spooky season. Curl up with a blanket, turn on your fireplace, or get some hot cocoa around and have a spooky time. I will be back this weekend. I have a spooky vlog coming for you, and I will also be reviewing a horror movie from 2023. Let's go.